Hello, good evening, and welcome back. Another day, another logic game, and still sticking to CAT 23 DILR slots. This one is from slot 2, and this is a scheduling challenge. And if you do not categorize it as a scheduling challenge, or if you do not meet this challenge with a lot of preconceived notions of how it is supposed to be difficult, then you will find it is actually quite ridiculously easy and it can be done in very quick time, right? So before we dive into that,
हे सँडविच किती छान आहे. यात ना असं असं असणारी चीज आहे.
sorry for that, I was just waiting for a check. And but before we dive into the story, I want to just cover the key ideas as well of what are the key DI LRs, the skills that we need to master and apply in any situation. And they are quite universal in their approach. That means you don't have to categorize at what kind of a DILR set it is, whatever might be the challenge. In fact, I'm not in favor of labeling them as, oh, arrangement, oh, scheduling, oh, something, because they're all so different from each other, but they have an underlying fundamental theme running, which is logic, repetitive deductions. You have to understand the story well. You do not have any formula, so the formula will come from on the spot, right? So you have to read the set well, obviously. That means, let's say, when you dive into the story, it's okay to take some time to figure out the story, because once you figure out the story, then you can go really fast, right? Deduce, and deduce over and over again, right? And by now, I'm assuming everybody knows what a basic deduction is. A, B, and C live in three houses. A cannot be in the middle house, which tells me A will be on the left house or the right house, right? So that is the quantum of the minimum level of deduction, but very small deduction, but they will keep happening. So after reading, you make as small a deduction as possible, whatever you can from the story you deduce, and you keep making these deductions, and in no time, whatever the story is, it will be resolved. You have to be organized, right? This is a game of, sometimes the sets are might be big, so it is, in those scenarios it definitely becomes a game of being very organized and systematic with your data. Otherwise, you try to rough it out and you might get confused after 2 3 minutes because the set is becoming bigger, right? One of the key skills here is trying stuff out, because you do not have a formula, you do not have a fixed story. So you say, okay, maybe it is 10 or 20 or 30, whatever the value is, and you try that out. And the skill is building and testing cases. So you try it out. If it works, great. If it fails, it tells you if this is not the answer, the other situation is the answer, right? Again, a skill that we have covered everywhere in almost every video. And obviously, be fearless. If you're scared of it, if you're already, if you're at your soul level, if you're worried about it, you're not going to perform well. So your main game is going to figure out that the easy sets are definitely easy. The tough sets are also, what is the level of deduction happening there, and you will find out it's very basic, very easy level. The tough sets are just bigger, so the size might be a challenge and the time pressure might be a challenge. But I have to convince myself that this game, after 15, 20, 30, 40 sets, you have to convince yourself that it is doable by me. Being fearless also means that till the set becomes very scary or difficult, do not assume a difficulty level. Do not start thinking extra along with the set, right? Because sometimes, let's say, one story said that you have to start with one and end with one, and in between you can increase or decrease by one or two, and you start thinking that will be too many scenarios. But actually, when you try it out, the scenarios are very, very limited, right? So do not overthink, do not over anticipate the difficulty level. Uh, Start with the assumption that it is easy. Sometimes it will be tough, sometimes you might get stuck, but you, that's where the game is. The main game is in this this perception organization. How do you perceive reality, right? Whether you, if you think it's difficult, then obviously, because what happens is when you're convinced like that, even easy stuff becomes difficult, right? So a ridiculously easy situation will also seem very, very difficult to you. So these are our key ideas that they've been covered in almost every single video that we have done so far. But just covering that in the recent videos, I might have directly dived into the solutions and not reminded you of the rules. So these are my key rules. So with that, let me dive into the story. And it's quite a straightforward story, right? Let's and again, the first step is obviously reading and reading well. So I start. Anjali, Bipasha, and Chitra visited an entertainment park that has four rides. Each ride lasts 1 hour and can accommodate one visitor at one point. Okay, three characters A, B, and C. The park has four rides. All rides begin at 9 a.m. and must be completed by 5 p.m. except for ride 3. Okay, great. Except for ride 3, I have to remember that ride 3 gets over at 1 p.m. Okay, so this is one rule that I have to remember. Ride gates open every 30 minutes. Example 10 a.m. and 30 a.m. and so on. Whenever a ride gate opens and there is no visitor inside, the first visitor waiting in the queue buys the ticket just before taking the ride. Right? So this is where you might have to read it a couple of times, and this is where you might overcomplicate it. But otherwise, it's a very simple story. The gates are opening every 30 minutes. So, for example, and again, I'm taking an example and I've already created a little table. There are four rides, ride 1, ride 2, ride 3, ride 4. And from 9 o'clock onwards, I have created time slots for me 9, 9:30, 10, 10:30, and so on and so forth, right? So let's say some character, and I'm using my own story, some character X gets on to ride 1 and he's in ride 1. It will go on for 1 hour. That means he'll start at 9 and even at 9:30, he will still be in the ride. At 10 o'clock, he will be out, right? Now, what happens if a character Y, because at 9:30 the door gate will open, so the character Y can enter and the gates are open, but he still has to wait half an hour till the previous person gets out of the ride, right? So if Y is coming into the story, Y will actually start at 11 and continue at 10, start at 10 and continue with 10:30 and go on till 11, get out at 11, right? So a complicated sentence, but this is commonsensical finally. How imagine what would happen if you were in a amusement park and there is a ride. The ride takes 1 hour, but you can start waiting for it half an hour before that in case somebody is already on the ride. If there is nobody on the ride, for example, I have a character called Q and he shows up at 11:30 and nobody is there in this ride at all. So he'll start at 11:30, the ride will go on for 1 hour. So 11:30 to 12:30, till 12:30 he'll be in the ride. That means 11:30 slot and 12 o'clock slot, Q will be on the right when there is no one waiting, right? So this is what we have to figure out. And again, this is not rocket science. This is our day-to-day level of common sense, right? Then it says the ticket prices are rupees 20, rupees 50, rupees 30, and rupees 40 for rides 1 to 4 respectively. Matched it also. Great. So I've written a 20 next to R1, written a 20, 50 next to R2, written a 30 next to R3, and written a 40 next to R4. Right? Now let me remove these characters and move further in the story. So again, unless I am scared and I am overcomplicating it, because it might feel, because it's a very simple idea explained in a very complex language. So may appear complex to some people that whenever ride gates open, what happens? But otherwise, it's just like the gates are opening every half an hour, but the ride takes 1 hour. So sometimes you might have to wait. And even if it did not make sense in the first go, there is more information in the story. As I read it, it'll start making more and more sense, right? So I already have the table ready. You don't have to make it disorganized and disgraded, but 9, 9:30, 10, 10:30, 11, I know that is going to happen. So I've just written down data till as much as organized as possible, right? You might not have to write it in this much detail. Now I go into the start reading the rules and start making my deductions. So this is where what we mean by mastering deductive reasoning. And it's so easy, so simple, such a little wow. Because if I ask you, if I catch hold of you and ask you, okay, Chitra never waited in the queue and completed her visit by 11 a.m. after spending rupees 50 to pay for the tickets. Okay, think about this rupees 50. She could have taken a ride too, just the ride too, and she was done by 11 a.m. That means she would have started at 10 a.m. So write that data, capture that information somewhere that it could be ride two. Let me make it bold and big. It could be ride two right? Simple 50 rupees she has spent because ride 2 is worth rupees 50, or because I do not know whether this story is guaranteed, it could be that she has gone for ride 1 and ride 3 because that will also give you 30. So as I read this story, I made this very small deduction that Chitra is either on ride 2 or she has gone for a ride 1 and a ride 3. Can I make any other deductions? No, I cannot. If she went for ride 2 only and her visit got over at 11 a.m., that means she must have started at 10 a.m. If she went for ride 1 and ride 3, something else will happen in the story. But for now, this is enough, right? Because some other rule will give you a very direct deduction. For example, the very next one. Anjali took ride 1 at 11 a.m. after waiting for 30 minutes. Okay. So, ride 1 at 11 a.m. Anjali starts. That means at 11:30 because 11 to 12 she'll be in the ride. So, 11 and 11:30 slots she has entered the ride and she's occupying the ride. 12 o'clock she's not there, so I am not writing that down, right? You might have a different notation, but the story will remain the same. But she waited half an hour. Why would you have to wait? Because somebody is already in the ride. And it says 30 minutes for Chitra to complete it. So I know Chitra was already in the ride. And this sign now, a slash sign now means that A is in waiting. Anjali is in waiting. She started at 11 and 11:30 it went on because every ride is a 1 hour ride. Started at 11, ended at 12, but entered the gate at 10:30 and had to wait for half an hour, right? Now, the moment I read this, that Chitra was 10:30 was still in the ride and the ride got free at 11, that means Chitra must have started a ride at 10. So 10 and 10:30 slots, Chitra is actually on the ride. And the moment I read this, I know this story that I had considered that Chitra might have taken a ride too is not going to work for me. So Chitra's story is going to be ride 1 plus ride 3. And Chitra 10 to 11 will be on ride 1. I know she got over by her visit was over by 11. That means this ride 3 she must have taken from 9 to 10. So 9 and 9:30. She is in 9:30, 9 to 9:30 and 9:30 to 10 if you want to call it. Chitra was in ride 3, right? And this is what we mean by deductive reasoning. Remember the rules I gave out earlier? They were read and then deduce. This is where the deduction part happens. And so far, the story is very, very easy. Great. Bipasha began her first of 3 rides. So, this might be important for later that she has taken 3 rides. I want to underline it, capture it in my memory banks. But the first of it was at 11:30 a.m. Now, again, think about it. Can Bipasha take ride 1 at 11:30? No, 11:30 the ride is occupied, ride 1 is occupied by A. And so ride 1 is out. It could be ride 2, ride 3, ride 4, maybe so many scenarios are happening. But I read the next part of the story. It says all 3 visitors incurred the same amount of ticket expense by 12:15. Now again, let me slow down, just look at this piece of information and try and make my deductions. All 3 visitors had spent the same amount of money by 12:15 p.m. Now, Chitra, I know Chitra's story. Chitra has spent a total of 50 only, right? That means everybody has spent 50 only. And if I think of Bipasha again, she's starting at 11:30. That means till 12:30, she will be in that logged into whatever ride it is. She will be logged into that ride, right? That means she's not buying any more ticket. Chitra has spent 50 rupees. Every character by 12:15 has spent 50 rupees. That means Bipasha also has spent 50 rupees by 12:15. And by 12:15, if she is on a ride starting at 11:30, she is not going to buy any other ticket. That means she has spent 50 rupees on this one ride, which tells me that Bipasha's story will start here. Ride 2 is 50 rupees worth. So from 11:30 till 12:30, Bipasha is occupying ride 2, and this is her first ride. She has taken a total of 3 rides, right? So she's starting at 11:30. She will be free by 12:30, right? For 1 hour, she'll be on ride 2. And again, what is the deduction process? The visitor, all visitors incurred the same amount. I knew Chitra's amount was 50, which told me Bipasha's amount also has to be 50 only. So Bipasha ended up being in ride 2 because ride 2 is the only one with 50 rupees. I also know Bipasha by 12:15 has taken only one ride. So she has bought only one ticket worth 50 rupees. So this gave me this confirmation. That means also with staying with the same piece of information, a lot of deductions are happening here, right? A has spent 50 rupees as well. I can see A has spent 20 rupees for R1. To make it 50, I know I have to go to the R3 story only. That is the only possibility, right? But A was busy. Can A start here? No, because and when I say here, that means can A start immediately at 10 o'clock? No, because I know at 10:30 A was available for ride 1. So it can't be ride 3 that A can go for at or before that. I start thinking ride 3 has to be the case, but it has to be after he has finished. So from 12 to 12:30 or basically from 12 to 1, A would be taking ride 3. And where am I getting this from? That A has also spent 50 rupees. I know 50 rupees can be created by, because I already know he has spent 20 rupees on ride 1. So R3 has to be the ride. But where is it? Only after finishing it. How do I know it is after finishing ride 1? Because I cannot place A before 10:30 anywhere else, right? So I'm bound by the other conditions. So great. I have spent very little time and put in very little effort, and I've already figured out 90% of the story, right? Now, now comes the exam orientation part of it. Now, let's say if the two sets take you beyond 99 percentile, right? And let's say this is one of the sets you're doing, and you're a struggler. You've convinced yourself that, ki, bro, this is like a important, tough section for me. In that case, you have around 15 minutes to try this out, right? And so far, in actual deductive logic time, it would be around 2 to 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, because the deductions were quite straightforward. I right now, I did not even have to put in any effort. Ki, okay, what's going on? It was very directly happening, right? And because the rules were easy to deduce, I would put this in the super easy category because you read them and you get the first few steps early. That is my criteria of an easy set, right? Great. The fourth rule, and maybe this is where some effort will go in, otherwise the set is almost done. The last ride taken by Anjali and Bipasha was the same, where Bipasha waited 30 minutes for Anjali to complete her ride. Furthermore, long story, before standing in the queue for the ride, Bipasha took a 1 hour coffee break after completing her previous ride. Okay, so the story, pay attention to it. It says a lot of small parts happening here. This is the last ride for Anjali and Bipasha. Remember, Bipasha has 3 rides total and she started at 11:30, right? So she has 3 rides. That means if I'm building the story, this has to be Bipasha's third ride, right? Furthermore, when she reached for this particular ride, there she had to wait for half an hour because Anjali was already on the ride. Now let me think about that. Ki where is this next ride? Which ride could it be? And I'm just raising questions. And again, that raising questions how? That means I'm trying stuff out. That can this story work for ride 1? For because ride 1 A was only there at 11:30. I read in the my rules earlier that any person takes a ride only once, so A is not coming back to ride 1. And around that time I know B was at ride 2. So the B's last ride, which will happen after a break of 1.5 1 hour and 30 minutes waiting, is cannot be R1, right? So that story is definitely out for me. Cannot be R2 because B has already taken R2 as the first ride. Can it be R3? Now pay attention, go back to the previous rule, and it said the ride 3 has to get over by 1 o'clock. Ride 3 has to be completed by 1 p.m. So if I go to my data now, ride 3 will be shut by 1 o'clock. No more riding after 1. So even if she came immediately, there is no way, right? There is no way that she can, because A will be in ride 3, will start at 12 and will get out at 1, right? And that means ride 3 option is out. That means if I'm talking about this last particular ride and matching with the A story, it has to happen somewhere in the ride 4 story, right? Okay, again, let me try stuff out. It said before standing in the queue, she took a 1 hour coffee break after completing her previous ride. Now, if I make a story and I say, okay, this is she will be free at 12:30, right? So 12:30 and till 1:30 she will take a coffee break. 1:30 is when she is available for the ride, and 1:30 she is waiting. She starts at 2, and even at 2:30, from 2 to 3 she is on the ride. This the 1:30 place is where she is waiting, right? Okay, maybe this is the case. This is the coffee break. B got over, started at 11:30, got free at 12:30. From 12:30 to 1:30, she took a coffee break. 1:30, she waited. This also says that A was on the ride, right? A was already on the ride, and that's why B had to wait. And that means A must have started at 1 o'clock. Okay, looks okay, but there is a problem here, right? That this is supposed to be B's last ride, and I am so far only getting 2 rides in the story. B I can see in the ride 2 story, and I can see it in the ride 4 story. So it had to be the last ride. So this particular story is not working for me because B has to take a ride somewhere else. Okay. So let me get rid of this experimentation. So now that means she took one more ride before the coffee break. Now, which ride did she go for? So maybe can she go for ride 4? Just try this out, right? Okay, so I say this is where B went. Okay, that means she did her first ride from 11:30 to 12:30. From 12:30 to 1:30, she went for ride 1. Then she took a 1 hour break, and at 2:30, she was available for ride the last ride over because she went for 3 rides. Ride 3 is already ruled out. That means she had to go for the rest of the rides. So this is where she went, and this is where A was already in on the ride, and A started earlier, half an hour earlier, and then B would take the last 2 slots because 1 hour of riding, right? This is for half an hour of waiting. A is riding, B is waiting. Now, I also go back and I check my rules and read it carefully. It says, furthermore, no one takes a break inside the park unless mentioned explicitly. This would have helped me further if I used it. No one takes a break except when it is mentioned explicitly. Now, Bipasha's break was mentioned explicitly, but nobody else took a break. That means A went continuously from ride to ride, right? So I know A was busy from 11 to or 11 to 12 for ride 1, and then 12 to 1, 11 to 12 for ride 1, and then 12 to 11 to 12 I'm saying, and 12 to 1 he is in ride 3, and 2 o'clock he is starting at ride 4. So what is the ride that he has not considered so far? This is the ride 2, and that means he was busy on ride 2 between 1 to 2. So look at A story. He started at 10:30 waiting for C. In fact, now we are done with the story, right? So I have kind of directly come to the answer. What I really wanted to show was to make a mistake somewhere and say, okay, this story is not going to work, and then try out the other story, right? So, and now we are pretty much done. So I figured out everything, everything matches. B went for ride 2 at 11:30 to 12. Then 12:30 to 12:30 to 1:30 she was busy on ride 1. Then she took a 1 hour break. Then waited for half an hour for A to get out of ride 4 and then completed her ride, right? And so this last bit is where some trial and error, some effort needs to be made. but the first 8 steps, first 10 steps are very, very direct. Direct. There was no even testing and saying I have to test my hypothesis, right? For this last bit, you will have to try out a little bit, and you have to consider that rule that A has not taken a break anywhere in the story. If you try out any other story, you will see that one of the rules is being broken. I invite you to do try it out, right? See if you can build a story any other way. Now, the moment I make this table, then I am done. What was the total amount spent on tickets in rupees by Bipasha? Bipasha went for ride 1, so she will spend 20 rupees. She went for ride 2 as well, so 50 rupees, that is 70 rupees. And she went for ride 4, which is 40 rupees. So 70 plus 4, my answer is going to be 110. Once we figure this table out, life is very, very easy. Which were all the rides that Anjali completed by 2 p.m.? Anjali completed ride 1. My cutoff is by 2 p.m. She had covered ride 1, ride 2, as well as ride 3 by 2 p.m. So, ride 1, ride 2, ride 3. This is going to be my answer, right? So, very easy now. Which ride was taken by all three visitors? Uh, I can just see ride 1 has C also, A also, B also. So, ride 1 will be my answer. Very, very easy now, right? How many rides did Anjali and Chitra take in total? I know Anjali took all 4 rides, Chitra took 2 rides, so Anjali and Chitra, my total would be 6 rides. What was the total amount spent on tickets in rupees by Anjali? Anjali took all 4 rides, so 40 plus 30, uh, 80 plus 50, 130 plus 20, 150, right? So the total will be 70 plus 50, 120. Sorry, and 20, 140. So her total will be 140, and that's it. My story is over, right? So even if this last step took a little while, took a little experimentation, even if you just kept staring at it for 5 minutes, there is still a lot of time because there are hardly any rules and conditions here. The story is quite straightforward, right? Now, by over anticipation, what I meant was, by the fear factor, what I meant was, let's say you saw a very difficult scheduling problem earlier and you had a bad time with it. You look at this problem and you will say, oh, it's a scheduling problem. I have trauma with a scheduling problem, and you will declare it difficult. Whereas, if you had a fresh mind, you had never seen this problem and you never thought of DILR as scheduling and bags and coins and maxima minima or any such thing. Maybe some topics will come, maybe set theories like a distinct topic, but otherwise it's all deductive a story, deductive reasoning, playing with the data, organizing the data, and moving along with it, right? So if you did not have any filters, preconceived notions, then you will find it very easy. At least 70-80% of it you will find very, very easy, right? Only the last step will take some effort, and even that's not too much. Okay, I tried one story, but I saw that in that case, B's, it was only the second ride. A story was a little lumpy and missing. Then I read that rule which said nobody took a break without the condition, I mean, without explicitly being told. So great. And then in no time, in fact, original actually figuring it out only take a minute or so, right? But I'm saying even if you make mistakes and stay with the process, because the first 70% was easy, I'm assuming that you will be committed to the rest of the game and you will figure things out, right? And that's it. And that's it. I will take a couple of questions are asked here. Sir, do you suggest giving emphasis on games and tournaments? I've finished it, but I have not solved high level sets. I suggest that you read what is on the screen and forget these ideas that you have learned from wherever, right? That games and tournament is a topic. There is no topic in DILR, guys. There is deductive reasoning happening. There is organization of data happening. You have to try out certain stories. That is a major part of the story. This one was very easy to try out. In some cases, you might have to try out a few numbers, right? Okay, the story could be the sum is 110 or 130 because even after all the rules, you still can't figure out. So you try out the 110, see if that can be created. After a couple of experiments, you'll find that it can't. So instead of labeling these topics as games and tournaments and this and that and arrangement and circular arrangement, I want to come to the central heart of the matter. What is the key skill involved here? no matter what the label of the problem is, right? And the labeling is a classic coaching problem, and it's an obsolete way of teaching DILR, saying this is one topic, this is one topic. I observe after doing 50 sets that these are the 5 things that I keep doing over and over again, and that's how I have built the syllabus, right? So I do not recommend any such thing. I recommend mastering, figuring out 20, sitting with 20-30 sets and figuring out ki bro, this categorization is impossible and pointless, and it is creating barriers for me. There was no tournament question in the story at all. There was a tournament question, but you know what the tournament was about? Ki people will go and just pick a coin, whatever, whoever has the highest coin, I mean 1 to 9 they will pick up. The highest is the rank 1, second is rank 2, the third is rank 3. Whatever preparation you have done for games and tournaments is not going to come in handy, right? This is a major point. I'll create a separate video for this as well. But I just wanted to show that how easy this is, how quickly this can be done. I don't think we took too much time. I mean, discussion might have taken time, but actual count the number of actual solving steps, and you will see it is very limited, right? So I hope all of this made sense. That's it for the day. I will see you really soon in the next workshop. Your DILR course is under a massive update, so check it out. A lot of new videos have been added. But if you've done the first 50, 60, 70 videos, you've already done enough, right? You have, it's not for training purposes, it's just for fun purposes, and it's my job to do it, so I'm just adding to it, right? So that's it for the moment. I will see you really soon with the next challenge. Good night, Shabakar.